Let me tell you a story. Not about Superman, but about what it meant to believe in him. I was maybe 6, sitting cross-legged on a carpet stained with grape juice and childhood memories, watching Superman, the animated series, on a clunky TV. The voice, calm, sure, kind. The cape, weightless but somehow heavier than anything in the room. He was strong, yeah, but that wasn't the point. He cared. About everyone. About the world. Even when the world didn't care back. To a kid growing up watching nihilistic people on the news and nihilistic people in power, Superman felt like an act of rebellion. A man who could level cities but chose to save cats from trees instead. Then the shift came. Somewhere between adolescence and adulthood, the big blue Boy Scout got dragged through a black hole where gods brood and humanity exists only to be collateral damage. Suddenly, Superman was depressed, unsure, and grim. An alien, always an alien. The kind of guy who would ghost you mid-conversation to hover silently over Kansas, brooding about existence like a teenage Nietzsche fan. The hope, gone. Replaced with grayscale filters and Hans Zimmerman's audio panic attacks. And maybe that was the world talking. Maybe we stopped believing people like Superman could exist. So Hollywood stopped pretending that they did. But then, this movie happened. It begins like a prophecy, not a prologue. 30 centuries ago, the first metahumans arrived. 30 years ago, a child fell from the stars. 3 years ago, he stepped into the light. 3 hours ago, he began a battle with the hammer of Baravia. 3 minutes ago, Superman lost for the first time. That's it. That's the crawl. No voiceover, no flashbacks, no rocket baby landing in a cornfield. Just a countdown. Ancient, personal, immediate, and devastating. In less than a minute, Gunn baptizes the audience in myth. He gives us a cosmic clock ticking toward a moment when a god falls from grace. And then before you can blink, you see him crash into the ice like an angel out of orbit. Bleeding, beaten, mortal. It's not just exposition, it's rhythm. Language stripped down to prophecy and placed in perfect meter. It sets a tone that feels both reverent and raw. This isn't an origin story, it's a second coming. And it had to be in media res. That was the only move left. After decades of origin retreads, the only way to make Superman feel new again was to show him in crisis, not in flight. Show us the fall, and let us earn the lift. This is how you start a myth after the world stopped believing in heroes. You start with the moment he bleeds, because only after that can we ask, what does it mean when a god chooses to get back up? David Corenswet doesn't play Superman. He embodies him. Not the icon, not the logo, the man. This isn't some marble statue with heat vision. This is Clark, the kid who grew up on a farm, the guy who says golly without a shred of irony, the kind of man who means it when he asks how your day was. And somehow, none of it feels performative. It's not a wink. It's not nostalgia bait. It's just him, quiet, grounded, present. That's what makes this version feel familiar, like an old friend after a long time apart and realizing, oh, you're still here. You've just been buried under 20 years of cinematic nihilism. Corenswet's Superman doesn't inspire because he's invulnerable. He inspires because he chooses to be vulnerable. He chooses kindness in a world that profits from cruelty. He gives people the benefit of the doubt when no one else will. He listens. And maybe more than anything, he hurts, but never turns cold. There's a moment that sticks out to me. Superman, angry, reeling, crashes into Lex Luthor's office with one question. Not why, not how could you. Where's the dog? No speeches, no threats. Just desperate, righteous fury. Because Lex didn't just poke the god, he kicked his heart. That's the strength of this Superman. He's not a god above us. He's a man among us. And not in a tired, he's just like us way, but in the quiet, radical insistence that being human is enough, that compassion is a choice, that hope is a rebellion. And in a time where the loudest voices are selling fear, power, and paranoia, a guy in a red cape who chooses empathy? That's not naive. That's defiance. Lex Luthor doesn't monologue. He curates, projects, gaslights. He's not the twitchy, scenery-chewing narcissist we've seen before. He's something worse. Plausible. Cold logic in a tailored suit. Think Musk's hubris trumps shamelessness and Zuckerberg's dead-eyed calculus fused into one smug smirk. He doesn't want to kill Superman simply. He wants to deconstruct him, rebrand him, make him small. And he almost succeeds. With the help from the engineer, Lex uncovers a buried fragment of Kal-El's origin message. A message that, until now, had only been one thing. Hope. A plea from his parents to do good, be good, inspire. But it turns out that the tape was damaged. The original complete version? It ends with a different call to action. Rule the people of Earth. It's a gut punch, not just to Superman, but to us. Because it's the kind of twist our modern nihilism expects. Well, of course the message was manipulative, we mutter. Of course the alien was sent to conquer. That's exactly what Lex is banking on in the story. This is the turning point, the moment the image of the untouchable God shatters. Because Superman isn't some flawless symbol of order. He's a man who bleeds, who feels, and who loves. And who chooses to keep loving, even when it hurts. That message, that rule them command, it turns out to be real, not forged, not tampered with. And here's where Gunn lands the plane with grace. The final act returns us not to Krypton, but to Kansas. Not to power, but to memory. Robot 4, now going by Gary, plays the tape again because it soothes him. But this time not as a propaganda, as a comfort, a home video. Kal is on the farm with Jonathan and Martha. Because in the end, Superman isn't who his alien parents told him to be. He's the man that his human parents raised him to become. And that's the point. It's not bloodline. It's not destiny. It's not DNA or data or genetic perfection. It's choice. Superman isn't a god trying to be human. He's a human who just happens to be from somewhere else. This world isn't built with gods and legends. It's built with people. And Gunn knows that. We don't get the Justice League. We get the Justice Gang. And what a strange, beautiful crew it is. Guy Gardner is a walking ego trip with a green ring. A cocky, arrogant prick with a jawline made for punching and a voice that could file taxes with a snarl. Nathan Fillion doesn't just nail it, he makes you want to see more of him, if only to root for his next concussion. Hawkgirl shows up like a steel-feathered storm and leaves just enough of a mark to demand your attention. She's fierce, focused, and clearly just getting started. Then there's Mr. Terrific. Calm, precise, anti-charisma incarnate. He's the kind of guy who walks into chaos and organizes it without raising his voice. And when he deadpans, "I don't like emotions," dude, same. But the real grounding agents here are Jimmy Olsen and Lois Lane. Jimmy is the perfect injection of human warmth, a live-action take that actually gets him right. Curious, loyal, a little awkward, but never a joke. He's not comic relief. He's emotional ballast. The kid with the camera who sees gods walking among us and still cares more about getting the story right than getting the scoop first. He doesn't make Superman feel larger than life. He makes him feel known. And then there's Lois. Sharp, tried, brilliant. The kind of woman who's been through every kind of war, emotional, journalistic, and literal, and still shows up with a notepad, a stare, and just enough heart to want to believe again. Her chemistry with Clark doesn't sparkle, it simmers. Old soul romance wrapped in newsroom bickering. You don't watch them fall in love. You feel the weight of a love that's already been through the fire and refuses to burn out. Together they do what no punch or planet-smashing scene ever could. They remind us that Superman matters because he has people worth protecting. They tether the myth to something human, something ours. That's why we care. And underscoring all of this is a score that understands Superman. It doesn't scream. It doesn't plead. It soars. The music walks a fine line, part hymn, part heartbeat. It nods to John Williams, not with mimicry, but with reverence, like a new pastor quoting scripture while writing his own sermon. It uses strings and brass like emotional punctuation, guiding, lifting, and reminding you that this is not just a man in a cape, this is the man in the cape. The score never overwhelms, it supports, like Superman himself. Quiet until it needs to be loud, gentle until it needs to be unbreakable. It knows when to swell and when to let silence carry the weight. Because this isn't a film that begs for awe, it earns it. A requiem for capes? There's a strange ache that lingers when the credits roll. Not because the film fumbled, because it didn't, but because it feels like a goodbye. Not for Superman, but for the genre. You see, this movie doesn't just arrive in a post-Endgame, post-Snyder, post-fatigue landscape. It answers it. It knows the capes are fraying, the masks are cracking, the billion-dollar stunts feeling more like obligations than events, and instead of fighting that truth with noise, it embraces it with grace. It doesn't scream, "We're back!" It whispers, "This is what it always could have been." Yes, there are member berries, the cameos, the nods, the glowing green flares of justice nostalgia, but they don't feel like bait. They feel like benediction, a final loving nod to a genre that gave us gods, monsters, icons, and now maybe needs to rest. You can feel the weight of the years in this film's bones, but not like baggage, like lived experience. Like someone telling one last story before turning off the porch light. And if this really is the last truly great superhero movie for a while, I'm not in mourning. Because it didn't go out chasing box office fireworks or multiverse cameos. It went out on something braver. Hope. Not spectacle, not nihilism, just hope. A cape not as a flex, but as a burden carried willingly. A hero not as branding, but as belief. This film didn't just entertain us. It reminded us why we showed up in the first place. And maybe that's what James Gunn understands better than anyone left holding a cape. That we're not looking for the next big thing. we're looking for the last thing worth caring about. His DCU, it's not just a reboot. I think it's the genre's final leg in the spotlight. Not a resurrection, but a requiem. And if we are heading into the sunset of superhero cinema as we've known it, at least we remembered how to end it with heart. In the end, this wasn't just a Superman movie. It was a reminder that stories still matter, that ideals aren't embarrassing, that kindness isn't weakness, that a person who can do anything can still choose to do good. This film didn't reinvent the wheel. It just reminded us why we ever let it roll over our hearts in the first place. And maybe that's the most heroic thing. Not saving the world, but saving the idea that it's worth saving. So, if this is the last superhero movie to mean something for a while, good. Let it echo. Let it linger. Let it light the way. Because even in a fading genre, even in a nihilistic world, Superman still flies.